Previously, we looked at ways that App Inventor could allow users to input values. In this section, we're going to look at ways App Inventor can output back to the screen. So, starting in the user interface group, the App Inventor has a label, which is our most basic output. And it can show text, it can show numbers, it can show a variety of things. And additionally, we can change properties about that label. So as long as our label is highlighted, we can look at the properties. One of the things we can change is the font. We can make that label bigger by increasing its font size. We can change the font typeface. Now there are not a lot of choices. Monospace is going to be like typewriter font, and serif is going to be like Times New Roman looking font. Sans serif is going to be kind of our default that looks like Arial. You can change the color of the text. If you want it to be pink, we can have pink text, which is kind of hard to see on this white background. I'm going to change it maybe to this blue color. But absolutely, we can change a couple of the properties of our text, and then we can have output. I'm going to drag a button in. A button is not for output necessarily. You can change the text on the button, and I suppose you could have output that way. But a button is primarily for input. And I'm going to change the words here to say click me. So now when we click the button, we're going to have some words appear on the label. This is a lot like what we did last time. I'm going to go to the blocks, and I'm going to say button 1 when button 1 clicked. So when button 1 is clicked, we want to have something happen. Well, the something we want to have happen is that the label 1 has a change to its text. So I drag out a set label1.text. We can set that to anything, but just for fun, I'm going to go to the math group. I'm going to have it pick a random number between 1 and 100. And now when I click the button, it's going to set label 1's text to some random number between 1 and 100. So every time I click it, I get a different number. You can absolutely do pretty cool things with random numbers in App Inventor. But that's one way to see, like, without having output, App Inventor can think of a random number between 1 and 100, but we can't actually see what it was thinking. So there we go. Another way we can do output in App Inventor, let me switch back to the designer view. Another way we can do output, and you've probably already done this, is in the media group, we have a text to speech. Just drag the text to speech in, and then back in the blocks editor, then we can say, well, when I click the button, instead of setting the label to a number, we're going to make text to speech say the number. And now when it all updates and I click me,
63, 27, 49.
It's going to say the numbers out loud. I don't know if the recording captured that, but it's speaking the numbers instead of putting them in labels. So we have labels we can do output with, we have text to speech we can do output with, but we also can output things using other components like images. So back here in the media group, one of the things that we have, images are actually up here in user interface, I think. Yeah, image. If I drag in an image, then an image is like a picture frame. You go to Walmart, you buy a picture frame, you don't necessarily have anything in the picture frame. Maybe you have that like standard family. But we can upload graphics to our app. And I have two graphics on my desktop. I have a check and an X. So I'm going to choose upload file, choose file, and unfortunately we have to do these one at a time. But I'm going to upload check. This is just like attaching a file to an email. Upload, choose file, and then I'm going to find X. Okay. So check.png is one file name, x.png is another file name, and I can take my image and then I can choose the picture to go in that frame, and I can either pick a check or I can pick an X. And that's another way I can do input and output, is with an image. So I can have images, I can have labels, I can have text to speech. Another thing is called a notifier. And the notifier can do output on your screen in a number of different ways. The way you can tell how any App Inventor tool works in the design view is if you go to it and then click the little question mark right beside it. and it shows you a description of what that thing is for. The notifier component displays alert dialogues, messages, and temporary alerts, and creates Android log entries through the following methods. And so if you wanted to know more, you could click this more information link and read the whole manual page, but I'm just more of a poker. I'll poke around. So I'm going to go to my blocks editor and say, when button 1 is clicked, let's do something with that notifier. Well, what can we do? One of the things that we can do is call show alert. Drag that in and drop it. And I'm going to put my random integer back in. So whenever I click the button, it's going to show an alert of a random number. Click it, and you should see it just pops up and then it disappears all by itself. Push it, I got 24, and then after 5 seconds or so it just disappears. So show alert is another way that we can display output on the screen. I want to show you one or two more ways to do output, and then we'll wrap this lesson up. Back in the design view, because you have to add your components in design view. If they're not added, you can't have the blocks for them. Another one is down here in media, and it's called a sound. So drag a sound in. Maybe you've seen soundboard apps where they have several buttons and you can push the buttons and make different sounds. You can easily make those in App Inventor. So just like we uploaded pictures, I'm going to upload this sound for sound.mp3. Upload file, choose file, and I've got it on my desktop. These will be available to you in the module, so you can download the files and you can follow along with this if you'd like to. So sound.mp3 is right here. Okay. It's actually sound.mp3.mp3. You need to be familiar with the names in case you want to change out the sounds. And then we can say that the source of sound 1 is sound.mp3.mp3. Now, when I say when button 1 is clicked, sound1.play, and you may not be able to hear this, but it's going to play a bicycle horn. And so when I push the button, it plays the sound. So that's another way I can do output. I can play sounds, I can speak messages using text-to-speech, I can put words and labels using label.setText, and I can pop up notices on the screen that show up and go away using alerts. One final piece, also using the sound, if you have a device that's, some tablets don't necessarily have the ability to vibrate, but every phone basically does. So the sound one can also make the vibration happen, and you just plug in a number. Well, you know what? We have random numbers. We can make it vibrate for a random number of milliseconds. Now, it may be hard to feel a phone vibrate for 1 millisecond because that's 1,000th of a second. But we can go from 100 milliseconds, that's 1/10 of a second, to 1,000 milliseconds, that's a whole second. And then when I push the button, if I had a phone that would vibrate, when I push that button, it will vibrate randomly from 1/10 of a second to 1 whole second. So these are all ways that you can output, and there are even more ways than this in App Inventor. You can send text messages in the texting. Absolutely, you can make apps that send and receive text messages, and you can even make apps that communicate via Bluetooth. But those are some of the ways: sounds, text-to-speech, labels, notifiers. Those are some of the ways, and images, some of the ways that you can do output in App Inventor. Output, again, is getting information from inside the app out to the user.